just saying, we wanted to really kind of, expand the conversation and talk about the relationship between, you're talking about Chicago, you're talking about the organizing work that grew out of the committees to free Angela Davis, that, of course, that really are targeting or looking at the repression, because the political repression that is producing the conditions and the militarization and the repression that is going on political activity. Now we have cop cities that are proliferating. The militarization of police have taken on, this very aggressive state. You have torture. Chicago is implicated as being some of the, just like a lot of people say that apartheid South Africa learned from Jim Crow United States. This torture in Chicago, these so-called black sites, proliferated themselves even during came to light even during the invasions of Iraq. This is related to the repression of the Palestinian people and these tactics that are being used and violence that are being used. How do we make sense of the world now? We have Palestinian people who are rising up. How do we make sense of these connections? And Chicago is a ground zero for a lot of the things that we're seeing internationally. The repression, the violence, the militarization, the torture sites, those type of things.
Well,
Sites about,
I can address
yeah,
some of it.
yeah, please do. Go.
And what I can address, I can suggest an approach. Uh, Let me start with the Palestinians. I want to start there because I think that's the most important thing happening right now. And when I say most important, I mean revolutionary. And I said this in a speech I gave before a rally that was organized by our Palestinian comrades here in Chicago. That we're on the eve of one of the most important revolutions, well, the most important revolution of the 21st century right now. But I think one of the most important revolutions of the last century. Because here are our people who have, for 100 years, and under apartheid Israeli regime for about 75 years, have been, they have been imprisoned in their own land. Gaza Strip is like a prison, 25 miles long and 5 miles wide. You put 2 million people in a space like that, and then you put walls around it, and you got settlements in there that are taking the best land, pockets of wealth, pockets of affluence, these settlements, these Jewish settlements, surrounded by the Palestinians who are living in dire poverty, who have a 70% unemployment rate, I think, among the youth, and about 50% among everybody. So the statistics are grim, but statistics don't have a human face. What you see over the news, what you see going on, like the carpet bombing, the bombing of hospitals, and they didn't just bomb one hospital. They've been bombing hospitals for a minute. The systematic murder and slaughter of the Palestinian people, with the aim of eliminating them, with the aim of forcing them out of their own country, off their own land. This is taking place as we speak. Every 15 minutes, a Palestinian child is murdered. And the United States, without any shame, without any remorse, without any conscience, is saying that they support this stuff. Biden gets up there and says that Israel, you're not alone. But he's got it backwards. Palestine is not alone. The world is supporting Palestine. The world is not supporting Israel. The imperialist world is supporting Israel. The would-be rulers of the world in Europe and the United States is supporting Israel. And I said would-be rulers because they're on a slippery slope. Their days are numbered. That makes them all the more desperate and all the more illogical and fiendish in what they're doing. Because even members of his cabinet, even members of Biden's cabinet, are saying to him, at least we know a lot of staff people have left. We know that. They couldn't keep that quiet because it's so stupid. It's so illogical what he's doing. What is more racist than the state of Israel right now as we speak? So much so until the South Africans, our South African comrades, have pulled the cover completely off of them. They have shown that what you have in Israel is an apartheid state, just as much as you had an apartheid state in South Africa at one time. This has been scientifically demonstrated. Nelson Mandela pointed it out before he died. So what's going on is that the Palestinian people, I'm not talking about Hamas, I'm talking about the Palestinian people, have drawn a line in the sand saying, no more, no more. You're not going to exploit us, abuse us, brutalize us, and oppress us anymore. You're not going to continue to kill our children and our families anymore without us giving you the best resistance that we can possibly give you. They're saying what Patrick Henry said, give us liberty or give us death. But we ain't accepting slavery no more. This is over. So whenever people do that, whenever they draw that line in the sand like that, it's the end. It's the end. And these fascists, these racists, supported by the United States government with our tax dollars, they are saying out and out in the open, in clear and unmistakable language, that they are going to perpetrate genocide against the Palestinian people going forward, period. They are not talking about any compromise. They're not talking about any ceasefire. They're not talking about none of that. They're not talking about no negotiation. They're talking about exterminating a whole entire people and forcing them off their land. So this is a situation where there can be no neutrality. All freedom-loving people throughout the world have to come to the defense of the Palestinian people, have to stand in unconditional solidarity with the Palestinian people. Don't tell me I care about human life, but the Israelis cannot say that they care about it because they only count Israelis. They're not counting all of the women and children that they're buried under that rubble in Gaza. They're not counting them. When you oppress people like that, you can't complain about terror. Just like the slaveholders couldn't complain about Nat Turner. They did. But we all understand what was going on. A slave has the right to rebel, period. That's an unalienable right. You can't take that right away. Israel has no right to occupy those people's land. They have no right to occupy Palestinian land, and they have no right to perpetrate genocide against Palestinian people. And Palestinian people have a right to exist by every and any means necessary. And we support that. The National Alliance Against Race and Political Repression, we support that, we support that, we support that. We're not afraid to support it. We don't care about them calling us anti-Semitic and all of that. We support that. We support that. You're not going to frighten us with this. You're not going to get us to thinking that because you accuse us of being racist, that excuses the racism of Israel. There's no racism in reverse here. We're talking about an apartheid, racist, fascist state that's perpetrating genocide against people who are mainly defenseless in terms of military. And you're carpet bombing these people, So,
and the fact that the connections become very, very clear, right? We're talking about the militarization of the police and their tactics. We talk about
let me just
please,
speak on that for a second.
Please.
Okay. We say not another dime to Israel. No American dollars should go to supporting the Israeli aggression against the Palestinian people. But we also say this, that occupation is a crime from the United States to Palestine and from Palestine to the United States. The Black communities and the brown communities of this country are also being occupied by racist cops who murder us with impunity, who brutalize and torture us and send us to jail with impunity. John Burge, who tortured all of those people and had all those. We got damn near 500 people in prison right now as a result of frame up torture cases that were engineered in the beginning by John Burge, but now being carried on by his descendants. He never faced trial for that. He went to trial for lying. He never went to trial for torture. He drew a pension while he was in jail. The same police force here in Chicago and the same police force in Israel, they belong to the same international association. They exchange data. They work with one another. The New York Police Department has an office also in Tel Aviv. Okay? So we are clear. We are clear about what the connections are. We are clear as to why we stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people and also with the Filipino people, with people anywhere in the world who are fighting against U.S. imperialism, because we are fighting against it here ourselves. We're fighting against it here because that's the same system that's holding our people in bondage. And black faces in high places ain't gonna change that fact. Every time I look at the decision in the United Nations, where all of the nations are talking about, except for maybe 2 or 3, are talking about in the occupation in Palestine, ceasefire, and the United States vetoes it in the United Nations, and they got a black woman sitting there. I mean, you can't say shame because they ain't got no shame. You can't say shame. They don't have that. They are flunkies. They are committed to the same thing that Biden is committed to, and they're proving it by their deeds. I salute those people in his administration that have the courage to say, no, we're not going to go along with this. I denounce those people, like those in the United Nations and those in the military, who are just going along with the program of murdering innocent people, going along with the program of genocide, which makes them guilty too. They are guilty. They can't, if war crimes are being committed, they are complicit in it.